This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, Malma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic. As the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. First, Malacanang warned that Metro Manila and other areas could again be placed under enhanced community quarantine, or ECQ, if people violate health protocols and an increase in COVID-19 cases is seen. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque again pointed out that the country has limited space for patients in quarantine facilities. Let's listen in.
Mula ECQ, naging MGCQ. Mula Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine, naging General Community Quarantine. Ang maraming probinsya at lungsod, kasama na po ang Metro Manila. Unti-unti, dahan-dahan, hinay-hinay. Pero ano pong nangyari nung araw ng Sabado? Dinagsa po ang mga malls. Parang nawala. Nawala na ang katunayan na nandyan pa ang COVID-19. Wala na pong physical distancing. Meron pa nga nagtutulakan. Pag ganyan po tayo ng ganyan, lahat ay mabibigyan hindi ng ayuda, kung hindi ng COVID-19. Paalala lang po, Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine o General Community Quarantine pa yan, nasa ilalim pa rin po tayo ng Community Quarantine. Nandyan pa rin ang virus, habang wala pong bakuna, habang wala pang gamot, hindi pa rin po tayo ligtas sa COVID-19. Sabi nga ng isang nag-viral na post, at alam ko naman, kilala nyo kung sino siya, bawal lumabas. Pero kapag nag-comply ka at inayos ninyo, mag-obserba ng proper hygiene, tulad ng paghugas ng kamay, pagsusuot ng face mask or face shield, at pagsunod sa social distancing at iba pang health protocols, mapapaflatten natin ang curve at yung bawal lumabas ay magiging pwede nang lumabas.
Filipinos have been allowed to return to work at half capacity in many industries after news that the nation's economy shrank 0.2% in January to March this year, the first contraction in over 2 decades. Malls are essential economic engines but are typically crowded, and it sparked fears that their opening has caused a spike in infections from 12,718 currently recorded. Meanwhile, the total number of confirmed coronavirus disease cases among health workers has also reached 2,314 after more than 100 persons contracted the disease, according to the DOH. In a COVID-19 virtual presser, Department of Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, however, said the number of health workers infected with COVID-19 started to drop on April 11. The total number of healthcare workers who recovered from the disease rose to 938. To Thailand now, they're on a phase 2 level. Let's look at the updates on the easing of restrictions in Thailand. Plus, Filipino teachers in Thailand are also feeling the impact of the coronavirus. Esther Odanga joins us live from Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Good afternoon, Alma.
Good afternoon.
And to our viewers all around the world. So here are the latest updates in Thailand. According to Bangkok Post, vehicles elbowed on Bangkok's roads after the phase 2 of easing restrictions. Commuters headed back to work to get the economy back on track. As jams grew in Bangkok's congested streets, travelers headed to provincial bus terminals to get out to the provinces for the first time since March. Most sitting beside empty seats in line with physical distancing rules. But restrictions on commerce and transport have battered tourism. household spending, and private investment, leaving a dent in economy which contracted at its sharpest in 8 years in the first quarter, pushing it into recession sooner than expected. And now, here's the update on the reopening of malls. The Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration spokesman Tawisi Wisanoyotin said the reopening of malls had proceeded smoothly in general, although he admitted there was room for improvement. For the new normal procedure, mall goers are required to download and register on Thai Chana application when checking in and out of premises. CCSA encouraged more people to download and use the app to track the numbers of people in any stores and enable contact tracing if any customers tested positive for COVID-19. The database is controlled by the Disease Control Department. It is used only to track patients, and the data will be kept for a long period of time. Dr. Tawisil said if the reopening of shopping centers went smoothly on the following days, with no rise of infection curve, more types of businesses will be allowed to reopen in the coming weeks. And now here's the update for the Filipinos in Thailand. There are a number of Filipino teachers in Thailand who are struggling after schools nationwide closed weeks ago in attempts to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Although they are still technically employed, many are hired under a no work, no pay status. This means they have to survive with no income until schools reopen again in July. In 2019 report from Department of Employment of Thailand, Filipinos topped the number of migrant workers out of 9 countries, taking jobs in teaching, management, engineering, agriculture, and business with 14,830. Thailand has been steadily hiring English teachers since year 2000. As citizens of an ASEAN country, Filipinos can stay in Thailand for 30 days visa-free. Every year, Filipinos come to work as teachers, hotel workers, or nannies, and upon employment, they are provided with visas and work permits. However, many are employed with no work, no pay status. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Esther, for your report. Thank you, Esther, and EBC Thailand Bureau.
Okay, reporting live from Thailand, this is Esther Dan. We live in interesting times.
To Cambodia now, where crowds are finding it hard to follow social distancing rules. We have a report coming in from Crystal and Ballesteros. Hello, Crystal.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon, and to all online viewers around the world. For Cambodia, Cambodia is rejoicing because the last COVID-19 patient was successfully recovered last Friday. Out of 122 reported cases, 122 are already recovered, which means there is no longer COVID-19 active case in the kingdom. Meanwhile, Ministry of Health spokesperson Orban Dean said that Cambodia had not received any official confirmation from Vietnam that one of its citizens had contracted the novel coronavirus while staying in the kingdom. Bandin said the ministry is paying close attention to the issue following a Vietnamese newspaper report that the man got infected before returning to Vietnam from Siem Reap province. However, she insisted that the kingdom had found no other COVID-19 cases besides the 122 patients who had all fully recovered. The VN Express online newspaper reported on Saturday that 4 Vietnamese nationals returning from overseas tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the total number of infections in their country to 318. It said one of the 4, a 39-year-old from Tan Chau district in the southeastern province of Tai Ninh, which borders Cambodia, travels by bus from his hometown to Siem Reap on January 10 and returned to Vietnam illegally on May 2 as the borders remained closed amid the pandemic. It said the man took a motor taxi from the Cambodian border to his mother's hometown in Tan Chau. He then reported to local police about his return and was isolated for COVID-19 test on May 3. His results came out negative on May 5, but he tested positive after a second test on Friday. The report came the same day Cambodia announced that its last COVID-19 patient had been discharged from hospital. Bundin said it was too early to assume the Vietnamese man had contracted the virus in Cambodia, as the contagious disease can spread anytime and anywhere, especially when an individual or group traveled from one place to another. While entertainment clubs and KTVs remain closed under the instruction of the Ministry of Health, authorities say they are having a hard time banning locals from running their small business along sidewalks, while large numbers of people can sometimes gather. Ministry officials this week confirmed that all its directives concerning COVID-19 prevention are still valid to prevent a potential second wave of the virus. The officials said countries where people had continued gathering at entertainment clubs, KTVs, religious ceremonies, and weddings have suffered the most from the pandemic. Phnom Penh's Chak Angre Krom Commune Police Chief But Posarao Goan told the Post on Thursday that 6 entertainment venues remain closed in his area. However, he admitted that alcohol is still sold on the street by locals who desperately need income, while large gatherings still existed. Authorities had disseminated virus prevention information on tuk-tuks and in large gathering places. They also distributed masks in poorer villages to help prevent the spread of the disease. He said all families in his commune were told to be vigilant at all times and to wear masks while traveling on the road or going to the markets. Residents must also wash their hands often and cook their food well before consuming it. The Cambodia Movement for Health on Thursday requested that government prohibit the sale and advertisement of all forms of alcohol while the country tries to prevent a second wave of infections. The organization said alcohol advertisements encourage a spike in drug use and drinkers tend to not practice prevention techniques like washing their hands with sanitizer or wearing face masks. The organization said those who consume alcohol are not obeying the ministry's guidelines as they tend to gather in large groups. It also mentioned that alcohol use weakens the immune system and reduces the body's capacity to fight contagious disease. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Crystal, and our EBC Cambodia Bureau. We look forward to hearing from you again this week. Thank you.
You're welcome, Alma. Reporting live here in Cambodia, I am Crystal Ann Ballesteros, and we live in interesting times.
2 cabin crew from Vietnam Airlines has tested positive for the coronavirus. Let's get an update. Joining us live from Hanoi is Charlene Navaja. Hello, Charlene.
Hi, Alma. Good day to you and to everyone watching. So the latest here in Hanoi. So I'm going to talk about the ASEAN senior officials meeting first. So at the Deputy Foreign Ministerial level was held on Monday, online with the Deputy Foreign Minister Nguyen Quoc Dung, the head of Vietnam ASEAN SOM, in attendance. So he briefed that the meeting on the implementation results from the Special ASEAN Summit and Special ASEAN Plus 3 Summit on COVID-19 on April 14. So he proposed focusing on the implementation of 4 major points agreed at these gatherings. So to establish a COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund and regional reserve warehouses of medical supplies, developing standard procedures in response to emergency public medical conditions, and setting post-COVID-19 recovery plans. So regarding the 36th ASEAN Summit and related meetings slated for June, he said that Vietnam was stepping up preparations with attentions being paid to ensure the highest security and safety for delegates, that he even called for close coordination with other ASEAN members. So other ASEAN member countries lauded Vietnam's ASEAN chairmanship for its and achievements so far this year, especially the country's response to the pandemic. So following the ASEAN senior officials meeting will be the 32nd ASEAN Australia Forum, co-chaired by Malaysia and Australia. And yeah, earlier you mentioned about the cabin crews. So there are actually 4 new cases here in Vietnam. So just a quick update on that. So there are 324 now. So 2 of these are cabin crew from Vietnam Airlines who were tested positive according to the Ministry of Health. Both were working on board flight VN0062 from Moscow, Russia, to bring home Vietnamese residents on May 13. The 2 other new cases were passengers on flight VN001 from Washington, D.C. in the U.S. to Vietnam on May 16. All 4 new cases were quarantined right after entering the country. So both patients, 321, who is 44 years old, and 322, who is 39 years old, are residents of Phu Nhan district in Ho Chi Minh City, who are both flight attendants of Vietnam Airlines. So they both entered Vietnam via Van Don Airport on May 13. Then the crew flew to Hanoi on a plane without passengers. And at 10 a.m. on May 15, the staff flew from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City on flight VN 7485 without any passengers. So the crew were then quarantined at a center of Vietnam Airlines at number 115 Hong Ha Street, Ward 2, Tan Binh District. So patient 321 and 322 stayed in the same room. So they tested negative for COVID-19 on May 14. And then on May 16, patient 321 had a high temperature and then tested positive 1 day later. Now he is under treatment at the Kochi Hospital. So after that, patient 322 was moved to a quarantine center in Kochi district and then also tested positive for the virus yesterday. So both are undergoing treatments at the same hospital. And for the 3rd and 4th patients, number 323, a 19-year-old woman, and patient number 324, 18-year-old man. So they are both from Tan Binh District in Ho Chi Minh City, and both are overseas students from the U.S. and went to Vietnam on flight VN001 on May 16. So after entering Alma to Vietnam via Noi Bai International Airport, the 2 overseas students were quarantined in a center in Thác Thát District in Hanoi. They tested positive for SARS coronavirus 2 on May 17 and are undergoing treatment at the National Hospital for Tropical Diseases number 2. So all these reports are from vietnamnews.com. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlene, for your updates. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this has been Charlene Navaja reporting live from Hanoi, Vietnam. We live in interesting times.
Staying in Vietnam, the country is commemorating the 130th birthday anniversary of President Ho Chi Minh. There you go. So also, Vietnam donated medical supplies to 8 countries. And we have a live report coming in from Chriselle Acuna from Ho Chi Minh City. Hello, Chriselle.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon, and to all of our viewers.
Good
Yes,
afternoon.
that is correct. Vietnam commemorates 130th birthday anniversary of President Ho Chi Minh. A grand ceremony was held on May 18 in Hanoi to mark the 130th birthday anniversary of President Ho Chi Minh. Addressing the event, Party General Secretary Win Phu Trong recalled the glorious life and revolutionary career of President Ho Chi Minh, who devoted his whole life to the national liberation of the Vietnamese people, contributing to the common struggle of people for peace, national independence, democracy, and social progress. So we know that late President Ho Chi Minh is the founder of Vietnam's modern diplomacy. More than 30 years ago, the UNESCO adopted Resolution 24C-18.65, which carries immense significance as a recognition of the world and the United Nations for the noble values of the Vietnamese people and nation, of which President Ho Chi Minh is the most eminent and outstanding embodiment. Late President Ho Chi Minh is a symbol for desire of peace and the fight against oppression and injustice. His heart and the mind were in ever tuned with the people in all over the world. President Ho Chi Minh also played a role in a setting of the most pertinent foundation for the philosophy of equality among nations and the vivid embodiment of such equality. Vietnam also donates medical supplies to 8 countries. Deputy Foreign Minister Win Coc Duong, authorized by Prime Minister Win Xuan Phuc on Monday, handed over medical supplies to ambassadors of Australia, Brunei, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand to help these countries fight COVID-19. The medical supplies include antibacterial masks, protective gears, and testing kits made in Vietnam, worth around $420,000 US. Addressing the handover ceremony, Hume said Vietnam wishes to share part of its resources as the COVID-19 pandemic requires solidarity and mutual support. He expressed his belief that the aforesaid countries would soon overcome this difficult time thanks to the great efforts of their government and public cooperation. Last but not least, Alma, Vietnam to automatically extend temporary resident permit for foreigners stranded by COVID-19. Vietnam will automatically extend temporary residence permits for foreigners stuck in the country because of novel coronavirus disease as long as they meet certain conditions. Those foreign nationals entering Vietnam before March 1 will have their temporary residence permits extended until the end of June 30 without any fee if they can prove that they are stranded in the country owing to COVID-19, the Immigration Department under the Ministry of Public Secretary said on Monday. These people will have to secure written certification from their diplomatic mission via a diplomatic note with a Vietnamese translation. And as for the weather, Alma, authorities in Ho Chi Minh City are expediting multiple road works as the rainy season is approaching. Also, last week we experienced heat waves from between 35 to 37 degrees Celsius. That's all from Ho Chi Minh City. Alma?
All right. Thank you very much, Chriselle. And thank you to EBC Vietnam Bureau. Thank you very much.
Yes. You're welcome. You're most welcome. From EBC Vietnam Bureau, this is Chriselle Yakuno. We live in interesting times.
And Filipinos in New Zealand welcome the easing of movement restrictions now at alert level 2. Greg Bessa reports.
New Zealand's socio-economic activities were ground to a halt when the government put the entire country in lockdown under alert levels 3 and 4, which were aimed at eliminating the threat of COVID-19 infection. For a total of 48 days, people were strictly required to stay at home unless doing essential jobs or travels. So, when the government decided to ease the lockdown at alert level 2, people from all walks of life in this country had gladly welcomed such decision. As New Zealand made a remarkable achievement in eliminating COVID-19 for almost 2 months in full and partial lockdown, the government lowered down its alert level to number 2 starting from the midnight of 13th of May, wherein it lifted many restrictions on human interaction and movement. Prior to such decision, the number of cases was less than 3 per day for several weeks, and there were even consecutive days that registered 0 cases. No other than the Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern herself received global recognition and praises for quashing COVID-19 with only 21 death cases, a small number of casualties compared to that of other Western nations. At alert level 2, people have more freedom to move around, though they are strictly required to continually observing social distancing, practicing safety and hygiene measures at all times, and to limiting as many as possible the number of people to whom they are interacting with so as to ensure easy and fast contact tracing just in case COVID-19 infection may arise. Yet, despite these restrictions, people are eager to do their shopping as retail stores and malls are reopening, to eat at their favorite restaurants and fast food chains, have their haircut and beauty parlor appointments, play with their favorite indoor and outdoor activities, visit the playgrounds and parks, and start traveling around the country. Moreover, thousands of workers are heading back to their respective offices and work sites after working from or staying at home for a while, as students at all levels are going back to schools. Much as the people are excited with what they are able to do at Alert Level 2, Filipinos in particular have welcomed it as they express with excitement on what they would do first at this level.
Magagawa ko na din po ang makapamasyal at sa magagandang lugar dito sa New Zealand na di ko pa napuntahan. At para may baon po ako magagandang alaala sa pagbisita ko dito.
There are three things I look forward to in level 2. Firstly, I look forward to extending my bubble. That means catching up with my close friends that I haven't met for like 2 months. And secondly, I really look forward to getting some physical exercise outside, like swimming and biking. And lastly, of course, I look forward to getting life to normal by spending time, eating out in the restaurant and supporting as well the Filipino businesses here in New Zealand.
Buying a duvet because it's getting colder and I don't have that much warm blankets, and art supply shopping because I'm running out of pen ink.
Oh, definitely I'm going to get a haircut. Look at this hair, oh. It's terrible. All the white hair. So it's the hairdresser for me. As long as there's no queue anymore.
Ang una po naming gagawin, pagbaba po ng lockdown level 2, kami po ay pupunta sa barbero sapagkat mahaba na po ang aming buhok, magpapagupit po kami. At pagkatapos po noon, kami po ay maglulong drive.
Yay! As for me, I am looking forward to having a haircut. From Wainuiomata, Lower Hutt, New Zealand, this is Greg Besa. We live in interesting times.
And before the next news, I would just like to thank, special thanks to JB Agustin for helping me out in editing this video. Anyways, in New Zealand, no one is exempt from the strict coronavirus prevention measures. Not even Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who was denied entry to a cafe because of her own social distancing rules. Now, the Prime Minister, her fiancé, Clark Gayford, and a group of friends, take a look, were turned away from a cafe in Wellington on Saturday because it had already reached its customer limit. I have to take responsibility for this. I didn't get organized and book anywhere, Gayford tweeted in response to another diner who had spotted the couple being turned away. As New Zealand eases out of its coronavirus lockdown, cafes were allowed to reopen on Thursday but must maintain social distancing between tables and customers must remain seated. A diner who saw Ardern refused entry told Stuff Media that a cafe employee had to awkwardly say it was full and there were no tables and they left. Fortunately for Ardern's party, other diners left soon after, and the staff from the cafe were able to run down the street to invite the Prime Minister back. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Iba't iba man ang pinanggalingan, iisa lang ang pinangahawakan. Ang pangarap na makilala sa kanilang larangan. Mas titindi pa ang performances ng ating mga TNG aspirants dito lang sa pinakabago at pinakamalaking talent competition ng Philippine Television. Ito ang
This program is presented by SMC Infrastructure Building a Better World. Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved NutriChoice, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa NutriChoice. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. PUREFOODS Luncheon Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang PUREFOODS Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee. Masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. Participation with Rainshine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint. Colorful protection for your home. Matimco. Matimco is wood. Wood is Matimco. R Square Variables Incorporated, your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. CompuZell Computer Services, ID card and lanyard manufacturer. Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, IMAC UPV Roof Corporation.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
Skyway Stages 1 and 2, the elevated toll road system project, run from a section of the South Luzon Expressway from Alabang to Magallanes, Makati. The Skyway Stage 3 is an elevated expressway connecting the South Luzon Expressway through the existing Skyway Stages 1 and 2 to the North Luzon Expressway via Balintawak. Skyway Stage 4 is an 80-kilometer mixed elevated and at-grade toll road that will connect the existing Skyway system starting from the FTI section all the way to Bulacan.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved NutriChunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa NutriChunks.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ibang klase ang sarap ng corned beef mo. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Kaya perfect ang sarap. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Mount Fuji is officially closed for the summer due to the coronavirus pandemic. Joining us live from Japan is Dennis Liu. Hello, Dennis.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon to you and to all our televiewers.
From Manila. Hello.
Yes, Alma. Yeah, here's my report. Officials said Japan's beloved Mount Fuji will be closed during this year's summer climbing season to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus. Shizuoka Prefecture, home to the country's tallest mountain, announced they were closing 3 of the 4 major routes to the mountain peak. On Monday, the government of Shizuoka Prefecture, one of the 2 prefectures by which Mount Fuji can be accessed, said that they will be keeping Shizuoka's 3 hiking trails that lead to the top of the mountain closed throughout the summer. Under normal conditions, the trails would have been open to the public during Mount Fuji's official climbing season, which this year was scheduled to run from July 10th to September 10th. In response to the coronavirus pandemic, though, the decision was reached to keep the trails closed. The closure affects the Subashiri, Gotemba, and Fujinomiya trails, all of which start at 5th stations, halfway up Japan's tallest mountain. It will be the first time the trails of the 12,388-foot volcanic mountain are closed since at least 1960, when the prefecture began managing the routes, he added. The decision comes after nearby Yamanashi Prefecture said it will close the Yoshida Trail, the most popular hiking path among the 4. The mountain huts along the 4 routes will remain closed as well. The mountain, a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site, is located just 100 kilometers or 60 miles from Tokyo and is clearly visible from the Japanese capital. It welcomed about 236,000 climbers last year, according to the Mount Fuji official website. Despite Mount Fuji's majesty, many complain about the actual experience of climbing it, citing the crowded hiking trails and difficult terrain. Perhaps for the season, a Japanese proverb states, "It is foolish not to climb Mount Fuji once, but it is foolish to climb it twice." Japan's virus outbreak remains small compared with those seen in parts of Europe and the United States, with over 16,000 confirmed infections recorded and 749 deaths. Japan last week lifted a state of emergency imposed due to the coronavirus for the majority of the country, but kept it in place for top cities, Tokyo and Osaka. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much for that report, Dennis. We'll see you back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, Indonesia will slap a 10% value-added tax on the digital offerings of foreign companies from July 1. That is according to the Finance Ministry. A levy that could apply to internet giants such as Spotify and Netflix. Take a look. Now, Indonesia will slap a 10% value-added tax on the digital offerings of foreign companies from July 1, according to the Finance Ministry. That will be a levy that could apply to internet giants, Spotify and Netflix. Products and services, including video games, music, and movie streaming, could be subject to the levy, according to the government. The tax directorate said in a statement, quote, "The tax for foreign digital products is a part of the government's effort to create a level playing field for all businesses. The move was also aimed at boosting public revenue to help mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on Southeast Asia's biggest economy. Indonesia's fast-growing internet economy was valued at $40 billion in 2019, a figure estimated to more than triple by 2025. Now, according to a study by Google and Singapore Sovereign Investment Fund, Temasek, tech companies often pay little tax in countries where they are not physically present. International efforts have dragged on to find a new model for taxing revenues earned via online sales and advertising. But Washington said targeted taxes single out U.S. companies such as Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Netflix. Now, in response to a levy on revenues earned by tech companies in France, Washington threatened retaliatory duties of up to 100% on French imports such as champagne and camembert cheese. In Thailand, the economy shrank for the first time in 6 years because of the coronavirus pandemic, which has shuttered borders and devastated the tourism-reliant country. Some 40 million tourists were expected to arrive in Thailand this year, drawn to its sandy beaches, infamous nightlife, and street food culture. But the outbreak has sharply bruised the country's cash cow, with tourist vendors reporting as early as mid-January a drop in visitors after China, Thailand's largest source of tourists, went into lockdown. Now, data released on Monday by its economic planning agency showed a nearly 40% drop in tourist arrivals in the first 3 months of 2020 compared with the same period last year. The decrease has translated to the economy shrinking 1.8% year-on-year in January to March. Thailand hasn't seen a contraction since 2014 when it was brought to a standstill by political riots that clogged the streets of Bangkok and led to a coup 2 months later in May. The National Economic and Social Development Council, or NESDC, also forecast the economy to shrink by 5 to 6% in 2020, the sharpest drop since the Asian financial crisis in 1997 to 98. The International Monetary Fund sets a grimmer outlook, predicting a 6.7% contraction for 2020, which could make Thailand the worst performer among its peers in Southeast Asia. The kingdom entered a state of emergency in late March and has banned all international flights until the end of June. Myanmar has made Southeast Asia's largest ever seizure of synthetic drugs in raids that reveal the unprecedented production of opioids in an area notorious for pumping out heroin and meth, and that is according to the United Nations. Take a look. Between January and April, authorities swooped on labs in the lawless Katkai area of Shan State, seizing nearly 200 million meth tablets, 500 kilograms, 1,100 pounds of crystal meth, some 300 kilograms of heroin, and 3,750 liters of methyl fentanyl. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime described the haul as one of the largest and most successful counter-narcotics operations in the history of the region. UNODC Southeast Asia and Pacific Representative Jeremy Douglas said in a statement, and I quote, "What has been unearthed through this operation is truly off the charts. The production network could only have been possible with the backing of serious transnational criminal groups," he said. Douglas also said the raids unearthed unprecedented methyl fentanyl, the sign of a new trend of synthetic opioid production emerging, quote, "on a scale nobody anticipated. 50 times stronger than heroin and up to 100 times more potent than morphine, fentanyl can be lethal from as little as 2 milligrams, the equivalent of a few grains of sand. It has fueled an opioid crisis in the U.S., which has killed 32,000 people in 2018. A deal to drop money laundering charges linked to the 1MDB scandal against a producer of Hollywood hit Wolf of Wall Street is terrible for Malaysia, according to the country's former Attorney General on Monday. Riza Aziz, who is also the stepson of the country's disgraced ex-leader Najib Razak, was charged last year for allegedly receiving nearly $250 million from Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund 1MDB. Billions of dollars were looted from the fund and spent on everything from a yacht to art in a huge fraud that purportedly involved Najib and his cronies. But last week, Malaysian prosecutors unexpectedly dropped the charges against Riza after he agreed to a deal that will see him return about $107 million in assets to Malaysia. Officials insist Riza can still be prosecuted if he does not honor the agreement. Many were angered he had avoided a jail term, however, and political rivals have suggested the move was linked to Najib's party returning to power following a political upheaval earlier this year. Malaysia's former Attorney General Tommy Thomas, who had taken the decision to prosecute the film producer, said the agreement was a sweetheart deal for Riza but terrible for Malaysia. The U.S. Department of Justice, which has been helping the Southeast Asian country claw back looted funds, said it would have returned these monies in any event because it belongs to Malaysia and was stolen from Malaysia, according to a statement. Mahathir Mohamad, a leading opposition politician who was prime minister until his government collapsed in February, noted Riza would return less than half the amount he was accused of receiving from 1MDB. Riza had been accused of receiving $248.17 million in 2011 and 2012 in illegal proceeds that came from 1MDB. The money was sent to bank accounts of Hollywood production company Red Granite Pictures, which Riza co-founded. Aside from The Wolf of Wall Street, which was about a huge financial scam and starred Leonardo DiCaprio, Red Granite also produced the Jim Carrey movie Dumb and Dumber 2 and Daddy's Home. Najib was voted out of power in 2018 in large part due to public anger at the 1MDB scandal and has since been put on trial over the mammoth fraud. He denies any wrongdoing. The drivers of Philippine minibuses known as jeepneys are using cardboard and cellophane to install seat dividers and enforce physical distancing among its passengers. Take a look.
Actually, dun sa prinsipyong gustong ipalaganap ng ating new normal na polisiya, talagang mandated or obligado na gawin ho ito ng ating transport sector. Otherwise, hindi talaga sila papayagan na makapamasada.
Wala kang harang eh. Paano hindi mo na malalaman yung sumakay sa'yo kung meron siyang COVID? At least yung may proteksyon ka, hindi ka basta-basta maawa doon. Tulad kung wala kang walang harang yan, delikado.
If the final decision is for the public transport, specifically train operations will already be allowed. We are now preparing everything. Number one of them, as far as the train is concerned, is a social distancing protocol. So to do that, we have to put markers to guide our passengers. So we have painted certain areas of the train where passengers will have to sit down or to stand.
Meanwhile, Metro Manila and the provinces of Laguna, Bataan, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Pampanga, and Zambales are currently under MECQ until May 31. The cities of Cebu and Mandaue in Cebu province remain under ECQ. Meanwhile, the rest of the country was placed under GCQ. Under the MECQ, there's still no public transport, but private cars are allowed as long as only 2 people sit per row. Public transport with strict safe distancing will be permitted under GCQ. Those living in areas under MECQ but work in areas declared as GCQ will also be allowed to travel as long as they are employed in an industry allowed to operate. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
The primary beneficiary of the proceeds will go to the FYM Medical Foundation that also supports the New Era General Hospital, which maintains a biocontainment facility, also intended for COVID-19 patients.